Hello boys and girls, and welcome to the world of Absolver, a place where martial arts meet mysticism. But what is the real deal with the story of Absolver? Absolver takes a page out of the Dark Souls book and decides to let the player piece out the story by themselves, through cues in the environment and item descriptions. So, without much further ado, let's dive right in the lore of Absolver, shall we? In Absolver, you play the role of a prospect. It's a martial artist with uncanny abilities that is training to become an Absolver. But to tell the story, we need to start at the beginning. Long ago, in the land of Risryn, there was a very prosperous nation called Adal. The power of this nation was unsurpassed in Risryn, and Adal gathered its power from the mining of a magical substance called essence. Essence had a lot of unknown properties at the time, but the people of Adal knew it was valuable. So, knowing that the mines underneath the city were brimming with essence, they decided to mine it all out and use it to make Adal into a powerful empire. However, the people from Adal ignored that essence was more than just a mineral, and by extracting such vast amounts of it from the ground, a chain reaction is initiated, resulting in a cataclysm that leaves the whole of Risryn in ruins. The Tower of Adal, the auspicious location where the mines were located, is completely decimated. The cataclysm kills most of the individuals inside, and the dead decompose inside of the tower, and the ones that were lucky enough to have survived are in turn poisoned by the sulfur seeping out of the cavities. In the end, not only Adal, but the whole of Risryn was finished. However, there were some individuals who feared and respected the power inherent in essence. These individuals left Risryn and established a society up atop the mountains, isolating themselves from the world. They called themselves guides. Once they arrive to the mountaintop, they're perplexed with what they find. Atop the mountain, amidst cold winds and snow, the guides find a spiritual being composed entirely out of essence. This presence is a spiritual being that used the power laden within essence in order to manifest into its ethereal form. Through communion with this being, the guides manage to learn from its spiritual ways and learn to manipulate space and time in a ritual known as folding. To fold is to use the spiritual essence found latent within oneself in order to physically manipulate the world around you. With this ability, one can materialize weapons out of nowhere, or even possess telekinetic abilities. On the other end of the spectrum, one can also unfold objects, essentially dematerializing them into thin air. The guides, baffled by the presence they found, cement a religion around it and vow that the tragedy that befell Adal would not be allowed to happen again. To this effect, they start training individuals to learn the ways of folding and to become powerful warriors, powerful enough to stop anyone that might misuse the sacred essence. Risryn is decreed a sacred land, and when they return, two factions arise within the guides. The first one believes that the place must be destroyed, as it is a symbol of the greed of men. The second faction, however, believes that it is better to use the destruction of Risryn as a lesson to teach everyone to respect essence and its powers. The guides, armed with the power of folding, clear the Tower of Adal from the decaying corpses and sulfur fumes, and a new purpose is given to Risryn, to become the new training grounds for those who aspire to become Absolvers. And so, the new rituals begin. Anyone who wishes to become an Absolver must undergo the most rigorous training, learning from all sorts of martial arts, and hone not only their body, but their mind. Any student that showed any potential would essentially be selected by the guides to finally meet the presence, who would endow one of their masks with a portion of its spirit. By donning these masks, the students would cease to be mere pupils, and gaining an incredible ability to fold and unfold, they would become prospects. The goal of a prospect is a very straightforward one: to become an Absolver. However, the path to reach that lofty goal is full of pain, suffering, death. For the mask links the soul of a prospect to the presence, and at the moment of death, the prospect would merely unfold, and then be folded again at the last shrine they had prayed at. While this might seem like a blessing, the ability to not die in the end could be proven to be a curse. Injected into the world and given a list of targets to be eliminated, prospects journey Risryn, fighting each other as well as their targets in order to open the Great Gate to the Tower of Adal. This magical gate is able to measure the worth of a man's actions, and only by defeating every mark can one ascend to the Empire quarters. However, only the most capable warriors would even be able to achieve that goal, and so, without the abilities to succeed, most prospects are cursed to be defeated again and again in battle, never advancing, but never being able to die. This in turn would cause some prospects to just lose their sanity in the process, thus becoming lost prospects. Some of the weaker ones would even attempt to remove their masks just to be able to finally perish and rest. But not being strong enough to wield the power of essence properly, they would not be able to unfold the mask off of their faces. However, there's a flip side to this. Some fighters would end up becoming proficient enough and would have enough talent to just be able to fold and unfold seamlessly. These fighters would even reach a point where they would remove others' masks and could kill them permanently if they wished so by defeating them, just while they are not wearing any masks. A good example of this is Cheps. Cheps is a very proficient fighter who was not selected to become a prospect. However, he was able to tear away an Absolver's mask, and after killing the Absolver and usurping its mask, made himself into a masked warrior by sheer force of will. His will is so great that using the powers of essence, he manages to override the will of the weak-minded prospects, turning them into mindless drones, forced to do his bidding. It is not until a powerful prospect shows up that can withstand his mind probing that he gets defeated. There are also interesting cases of individuals that are allowed to be brought back from the dead even though they do not possess a mask. One of such cases are the siblings Cargill and Kildor. These two siblings have such respect and attachment to their customs and their beliefs, and the need to test prospects, that even when they are defeated and essentially killed because they do not have a mask, they are revived and allowed to fight another day through the powers of folding. All throughout Risryn, there are prospects who journey through the ruins of a civilization that flourished due to the power of essence, but that was also undone by the greediness of man, always wanting more. This pilgrimage is to serve not only as a means to empower the prospects in body and mind through countless battles, effectively turning them into deadly and precise living weapons, but this is also to help temper their resolve and demonstrate to them the real need for the guides, to make sure that this greed for the power of essence is not repeated, and that societies around the globe get culled when their lust for essence goes overboard. After going through all of the trials in Risryn, a prospect is granted access to the Tower of Adal and eventually gets to visit the Imperial quarters, where Risryn awaits them. Risryn is a former Absolver who has been given the task of testing the prospects that are able to arrive to that point. However, by sheer disappointment in the lack of ability displayed by the prospects that lay before her, as well as the realization that the duty that Absolvers must abide by is far too difficult for these unexperienced fighters to withstand, she decides to put her duties aside. Risryn feels that the weakness presented by the up-and-coming prospects, in turn, means that everyone's fate is sealed. And with no new powerful Absolvers to carry the will of the guides, it is only a matter of time before the tragedy of Risryn repeats itself. Crushed by this realization and the grief it brings her, Risryn decides to take things one step further and starts removing the masks of all the prospects she deems unworthy before defeating them, effectively killing them in the process. The guides do attempt to send several fighters to stop her, but being a formidable opponent, she defeats them all. That is, until a prospect brimming with talents finally stands before her. The prospect witnesses firsthand the harshness of Risryn's punishment, but without skipping a beat, jumps straight in the fray. All throughout the fight, Risryn realizes that this prospect is far different from any she has fought before, and once the battle is over, Risryn lies at the feet of the prospect, completely defeated, but incredibly satisfied, and with a renewed sense of hope, a hope stemming from having witnessed the rise of a new powerful Absolver. After the battle, the prospect is folded into the mountain plain once more, and is granted the cloak of the Absolver, a very cherished icon. It is at this point that the guide informs the new Absolver that they will call upon them when the time is right, and that in the meantime, the Absolver should descend upon Risryn once more, and just keep honing their skills, getting stronger and stronger for the time the guide needs of their power. Without knowing why or when they would call upon them, the Absolver descend unto Risryn once more, intent on improving their skills until they are to be called upon to enact the will of the guide. So that's it, folks. That is my take on the story of Absolver. Let me know what you think about it, and if you find any evidence that shows that I am wrong, just let me know in the comment section, and I will try to annotate this video or maybe do an errata video later on. As always, if you enjoyed the video, it would help me a lot if you gave it a like. And if you enjoy what I'm doing with the channel, you should consider subscribing. I put out content relatively frequently. Until the next time, this is Cheps, and I will see you soon.